So in the last lecture, we learned how to make a route or the navigation part of the website. So if you click on home, it will open the home component. If you click on student register, it should open the student register component. And what we want here is that if you click on student register, the student register component should have a form where the users can fill the data for the students. They can enter student ID, name, email, and password using text box, and the department using the drop down list, and they will have a submit button here. So this is the objective of this lecture, how to create a form in the student component. So I'll go to my Visual Studio. Okay, so inside the student register .js file, I'll create the component. So we will divide our work, what we have to do for this form. So we'll have to import Bootstrap for making our form beautiful and stylish. We will import Axios, which will help us in posting the data to the server. So import Axios, which will help in posting the form data to the web server. Then we will import the hooks, especially the use state hook, which will allow us to create use state variables for storing the form data. Then we will create our student register component in which we shall define our use state variables for storing the form data, define the function which will submit the form data, return the form, create the form in the return method or function. So let's start by one by one. So first we'll import Bootstrap for making our form beautiful and stylish. So for this we have command import bootstrap /dist /css /bootstrap dot min dot css. So we have already installed npm installed Bootstrap in our previous when we made the app.js. So I did not do it again, and I will import the Axios, which will help me in posting the form data. So import Axios from Axios. So now I'll import since I have to use the use state variables, so I will import the use state hook. So import use, S capital here, use state, use effect I'll not be using in this program, we will use later on, but I'm importing right now from this. We have to import from React. Okay, so now I will create the student register component. Okay, so for making the component, start with keyword const. Let me just close this comment here. So const, the name of the component will be the same as name of the file, student register. S in student, S is capital, R is capital. So const student register equal to parenthesis, arrow operator, and curly brace. So this is how I will define my component. So in this component, the first thing I will define is declare the use state variables for storing the form data. So for how we define the use state variables and the methods to change the use state variable. So const, in the square bracket, the first value will be the use state variable, let's say student ID, and the second value will be the name of the function that can modify the value of this use state variable. So the convention is that whatever is the name of the use state variable, we just put set before that. So set student ID. So this is not the rule but the convention, so that it is easier for us to remember that student ID will be modified by a function set student ID equal to, then you write use state, and in the bracket you can give the initial value for this use state variable. So let's say I give my ID T46. Okay, so same way I will define my other use state variables. Student name, this is my use state variable, and the function for changing the student name. So set student name equal to use state, and the initial name for the student I will give Somesh. Then third use state variable, let's say email, is this use state variable, and the function to modify this use state variable, this name is set email equal to use state, and the initial value I want to give it, let's say sumesh@utas.edu.om. The initial values are not compulsory. If you have to give, if you need, you can give, otherwise you can leave it empty. So the next use state variable is for the password, and the last one is the department, and these will be used to remember the form value. Now the next thing I want to do here in this function is that I'll create a function that will post the form data. So let's say const, and let's say name of the function add student equal to arrow operator, and then I will write the block for this function. Okay, so we already know we imported this XUS from XUS. Yeah, I forgot to put semicolon here. Okay, so we will post the form data using the XUS. So for this, the XUS provides us a post method. In the post method, the first thing I'll specify that where this data will go. So I can specify here HTTP localhost. Right now all my website is in the localhost, so I'm giving it localhost. Then at what port it should open, let's say 3001, right? So the first argument specifies where the form data will go, and the second argument specifies what data will go. So I will create an object of this data. So we know that object comes in curly brace. So in this curly brace, I will specify what data will go there, and here I will define my object. So let's say I will create one string student ID, and this will carry the student ID. Now here this student ID refers to the use state variable, okay, but this string refers to the string or kind of variable which will carry this data to the server side code. Okay, so I'm keeping the same names, but on the right side is the use state variable, and on the left side is the string or kind of variable which will carry this data to the server page. Student name, the string, and the use state variable, student name. Email, use state variable, email, string or variable password which will carry the value of use state variable, password, the variable or use string department which will carry the value of the use state variable depart. Okay, so this is the post function. The first argument where to send the data, and the second argument is an object consisting of the data that will be sent to this location. Okay, now after this post method we can put dot, okay, and then we have then method. Then method specifies what to do if the form data is submitted successfully. Then again dot, then we have catch method, and here we will specify if there is an error, we will catch the error and we will display that error. So in the then method, we have a callback function here. Okay, the argument this will be the response, and this is my block which I will execute. So this response can have all the data of the response, but since the then method will be executed if the form data has been executed successfully, so I will just write an alert message to indicate that form data has been submitted successfully. So form submitted, right? And the catch method, again it will have a callback function. Okay, so it has the argument for this callback function will be the error, what error has occurred, right? So this error, you can give it any name, err or error, whatever, and here I can just display that error in the alert. So whatever, because when we are submitting the form data, there can be different reasons why the form is not submitted. So whatever is the error, that will be displayed. So I have made this function add student for posting this data, right? Okay. So now I will create a form in this component. So what the user will see is the form. We have created, we have imported some packages. We have created in this component, we have created some use state variables. We have defined a method that will post the form data, right? Okay, but what the user will see, okay, the form that we have to send to the user using the return method. So I will now come to my return method. So this is my return method. Inside this, I will define so I'll make one div element here, and this div element I'll create the form. So all of you know how to make the form, and before the form I can make a heading here. So we have okay, again we made a mistake here, bootstrap slash dist distribution, right? And at the end of the component we have to write export. So I'm just writing it early so that it doesn't keep on showing the error here. So okay, you can see here in the return I am making the form. So as I make the form, you can see here I added the heading student registration form, and the heading came here. So as I add the components here, they will be, you can see the progress in this page. Okay, so in the form we have used bootstrap. So I will use the class name form control for styling my form. In the form, the first thing I want to do is enter the student ID. So I just write here, and the mistake we have done here is that I didn't put slash here, student ID, and here I will make my text box for entering the student ID for making text box. The control is input, type is equal to text. So let me put all the attributes one below the other for more clarity. So you can see here I have this text box but without any style. If I give I'm using bootstrap, so if I give the class name form control, you can see the style of this text box has changed now, right? With proper padding and other features. Okay, now so what value we want to display here? We want to display the value of the use state variable. So for the student ID, so value equal to, so this value, since the value is a JavaScript value, we will put in double quotes, and I will write the name of the use state variable, which is storing the student ID. So you can see here the value, the initial value of student ID, we define T46, right? Student ID, the initial value T46, and you can see here the values here, right? Now the another major attribute for the text box is the on change event. So again, on change, C capital, and on change we will define, we will have a callback function. Okay, E stands for event and this arrow operator, and we will write here E dot target dot value. Okay, so on change, we know that if we have to change the value of the use state variable, we have to call the function for that. So for modifying the value of the use state variable student ID, we will use this function set student ID. So in the callback function, you will have the use state method. So set student ID, this is the name of the method which can change student ID, and in this the argument will be E dot target dot value. So whatever value you put inside the target control, which is the current text box, okay, so this will change the value of the student ID, right? So for example, if I change value here, so immediately the value of use state variable will change. Okay, so for demonstration purpose, what I can do here is just below the form, I will just display the value of this use state variable student ID, right? So you can see here, whatever the value here, the value is being displayed here. Okay, so on change, if I change some value here, let's say I make it 8, T4678, the moment I change this value, immediately the value, okay, from this text box, this new value will be taken, and the set student ID will set the new value for the student ID, and immediately this new value, this used value will update, and the updated value will come here. See here, the moment I type change the value, this function is changing the value for this use state variable, which I am displaying here and inside the text box also. So this is the method that you have to apply for all the form controls. So these two things are important for all text boxes to keep the value updated for your use state variable. So after this student ID, I will go for student name. Again, type is equal to text, class name is equal to form control. No need to change this. And in the value, now I will write the use state variable for storing the student name. Okay, and on change here, set student name. Then I will go for the email. So let's say the message is student email. Input type is equal to text, no change. Class name, form control, no change. And the value, the use state variable, which will store the email. And on change, which function can change the email? Set email. You can see the form is being updated here. Then the next one is password. Although we should use the input type is equal to password, so let me change it to here to input type is equal to password, so that the password is not visible, right? You can see here when I make type password is not visible, right? And here the use state variable for storing the password is password. So the value inside this is the current password, but you can use whenever you make change in the text box, the set password will change the password value. And the last one is the department. For department, we are using the drop down list. So let me give the heading here, and here I will create the drop down list. So the select element is used to create the drop down list, and inside this I will create the options. So let me create 3 options for, let's say, 3 departments. So let's say first is IT or information technology, business, engineering. So in the option we can put the values, what values will be sent if they choose some specific option. So let's say for information technology, let me put it IT. For business, let me put business. And for engineering, let me put here engineering. So you can see here my drop down list here. But if you see, this drop down list is not very stylish. So I will, in this select, I will add the bootstrap class name of, let's say, form control. So you can see now the style is changed, right? Okay, now here also in this select, whenever the for the department we have a use state variable of department, right? So whenever there is a change, so on change, we have a callback function where the argument is the event, and here I will call my use state function set department, and what value I will set, whatever the new value in the whatever new value you choose in the drop down list. So for this, e dot target dot so let me put this attribute of select in new line just to have more clarity. This is on bracket for curly brace for on change, and this is the curly brace for the function block, arrow function block, right? So you can see here you have this drop down list, right? Okay, so to test, you can display all these values of the use state variable below, whether the values are being changed or not. So once you make the drop down list, the last thing I have to make is create a button so that when you click on the button, the form data is submitted. So let me create that button. Let's say BR. Okay, in the next line, so I create a button. So you can see here the button is here, but right now no text on this. So whatever I put inside this button, that will appear here. Submit form. So you can see here now the text submit form is here, but still this button is not very stylish. So I'll add some class here, bootstrap class name, and for the button let me use the class button space button info. So you can see this now the form, we have a stylish button here, and when somebody clicks on this button, then what to do? We have to submit the form data, and for submitting the form data we created a function here, add student, if you remember. So this function using the XUS post method, it will post the data. Okay, the first argument specifies where this data will go, and the second argument is an object, okay, which has student data, and this specifies what data will go, right? And the dot method, the then method specifies what to do if the form data is successfully submitted, and the catch method specifies what error occurred if the form could not be submitted. So in the submit button, okay, I have to, when somebody clicks on the sub button, I have to call this method add student, right? Okay, so here on click, on click. Okay, so again in the curly braces because it's the name of the function. So the name of the function is add student. Right? Okay, so your form is ready, and in the next video we will specify the server side coding. Okay, that when you submit the form, okay, we missed something here, that here we specify only the name of the URL, but we also specify the path. So let me call the path as add student. So the name of the function is add student. Okay, and the route also I'm giving the same name, add student. Okay, so when you submit the form, then the data will go, then the URL will be localhost 3301, and the route or path will be add student. And if the path is add student, then we will have some server side program which will receive this form data, and then that page will push that data into the database. Right? So thank you very much, and we will write the server side code in the next lecture.